Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to Sleepy Science Teller. As the world grows quiet and the night begins to whisper, we'll explore something truly beautiful, something that connects every living being in the quiet harmony of nature. Tonight's gentle discovery is about symbiosis, nature's timeless partnership. It's the story of how life survives, not alone, but together, how every creature, from the smallest microbe to the tallest tree, finds balance by forming a bond with another. Before we begin, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your part of the world. Leave a gentle comment below so we can imagine our sleepy community spread softly across the globe. And if you'd like to join me again for more soothing explorations of science and wonder, please take a quiet moment to like this video and subscribe so you never miss another story beneath the stars. Now, let's begin our journey into the peaceful world of symbiosis. In the gentle stillness of the natural world, there exists an invisible thread, a quiet connection that links every creature to another. This thread is what scientists call symbiosis, but to the heart, it feels like harmony. The word symbiosis comes from two Greek roots, syn, meaning together, and bios, meaning life. Together, it means living together, two lives intertwined in balance and dependence. If you were to step into a forest at dawn and listen closely, you might not hear the word spoken, but you would see it everywhere. In the way moss clings softly to the bark of an old tree, in how a tiny bird finds food beneath the leaves, in the way the sunlight feeds both the tree and the fern below it. Symbiosis is not always a friendship. Sometimes it's competition, sometimes cooperation, but always it is a relationship. It's how life learns to live with life. Every breath we take is part of this vast exchange. The oxygen in your lungs comes from the photosynthesis of plants and algae. The carbon dioxide you exhale feeds them in return. Even in something as simple as breathing, the universe whispers a story of togetherness. When early scientists first observed this, they thought of it as a curiosity, an odd partnership between species. But as our understanding grew, we began to realize that symbiosis is not rare. It is, in fact, the rule of life. Every ecosystem, from the rainforest to the coral reef, from the frozen tundra to the human body itself, depend on relationships seen and unseen. Picture a forest again. You may think of trees standing tall and separate, each one an individual, but below the soil, their roots are entwined in a web of fungi and bacteria, sharing messages of water and nutrients. They are not solitary beings. They are community and network, breathing as one. Even the soil under your feet is alive with this cooperation. Countless microorganisms live side by side, breaking down leaves, recycling minerals, feeding the roots that hold the forest steady. In the language of nature, symbiosis is the grammar of existence. It tells us that no being stands apart, that every life supports another in ways too subtle, too deep to always be seen. And so, when we talk about the meaning of symbiosis, we are really speaking of the meaning of connection, the truth that survival is not a solo act, but shared performance where every voice matters. Long before humans ever walked the earth, before the first forests, before the first animals swam in the sea, there were microbes, tiny single-celled organisms, floating through ancient oceans, It was here, billions of years ago, that symbiosis began. One of the most beautiful examples is found within our own cells. Inside every plant and every animal are tiny powerhouses called mitochondria. These little energy makers were once free-living bacteria. Long ago, another cell swallowed them, but instead of being digested, they formed a partnership. The larger cell offered shelter, and the smaller one provided energy. Together, they thrived. Over time, they became inseparable, and that partnership gave rise to complex life itself. Without that act of ancient cooperation, none of us would exist today. Even the green chloroplasts inside plant cells have a similar story. They too were once separate organisms, photosynthetic bacteria, that merge with larger cells. Now, they give plants their green color and feed the world with oxygen and sugar. This is symbiosis on a cosmic timescale, a partnership that rewrote the history of life. Through billions of years, evolution refined these connections. Predators and prey, hosts and guests, helpers and healers, all became parts of a complex dance. It's fascinating to think that the very structure of our bodies is built on relationships that began in the ancient sea. Every cell you have is a living museum, carrying the memory of the first great collaboration. When we look at nature today, we are seeing the result of those ancient experiments in togetherness. A coral reef teeming with life, a bee landing softly on a flower, a bird cleaning the teeth of a crocodile, each moment a reflection of a story that began billions of years ago. In this sense, symbiosis isn't just a scientific concept. It's a universal truth. It tells us that cooperation is not weakness. It's the foundation of survival. It's how life adapts, how it grows stronger, how it continues. When we breathe, eat, or sleep, we are continuing a relationship older than time itself. When we observe symbiosis, we begin to see a quiet philosophy behind it. It tells us that the world is not built on isolation, but on partnership. A single leaf can only photosynthesize because of light from a distant star and water drawn upward by invisible threads in the soil. Even the smallest act of life depends on countless others. Imagine for a moment the unseen chain that connects you to a distant ocean. The ocean's plankton produce much of the oxygen you breathe. The rain that feeds your food once drifted above coral reefs and seas. The soil that grows your bread is alive with bacteria and fungi, whose ancestors were among the first beings on Earth. You are part of this web, not separate from it, but woven into its very pattern. Symbiosis teaches humility. It reminds us that life thrives not by domination, but by cooperation, that even the strongest species depend on the smallest, that even competition often hides a quiet form of collaboration. Scientists once saw nature as a battlefield, where only the fittest survived. But over time, a gentler picture emerged, one that showed us that life's true strength comes from its ability to work together. Symbiosis shapes the world around us, from the colors of a coral reef to the balance of a rainforest, to the rhythm of our own hearts. Even in our breath and in our blood, tiny life forms play their part. They remind us that existence is shared. And when you think of it this way, it becomes almost poetic that the word together lies at the heart of life's design. Symbiosis is nature's way of saying that nothing truly lives alone. Every organism, every atom belongs to a grand living conversation, spoken softly across time and space. When we talk about symbiosis, one of its most heartwarming forms is mutualism. It is a story of giving and receiving, a dance of two lives, helping each other to thrive. In mutualism, both partners benefit. It is a kind of harmony found in the quiet corners of the natural world. And though it seems simple, it is one of the most powerful forces shaping life on Earth. Think for a moment of a flower and a bee. The flower opens its petals like gentle arms, inviting to be closer. The bee lands softly, drawn by the sweetness of nectar. As it drinks, it gathers tiny grains of pollen on its body. Then it flies to another flower, carrying the gift of new life. The flower feeds a bee, and the bee helps the flower reproduce. Two completely different creatures, each giving something, each receiving something, each better because of the other. That is the essence of mutualism. It exists everywhere, in oceans, forests, deserts, and even within our bodies. It's the natural world's quiet handshake, a promise that survival is shared. Beneath the ocean waves, there are clownfish and sea anemones. The clownfish hides among the anemones' stinging tentacles, safe from predators. In return, it keeps the anemone clean, chasing away harmful fish and debris. A home for one, protection for the other. Mutualism often begins out of necessity, but over time, it becomes a story of trust. Each species learns to rely on the other, to the point where neither could easily live alone. Even humans owe their lives to mutualism. The crops we grow depend on pollinators. The bacteria in our gut help us digest and absorb nutrients. And in return, we offer them warmth and food. Every breath, every bite, every heartbeat is part of an ancient exchange. The beauty of mutualism lies in its balance. It's not about dominance or power. It's about reciprocity. Each participant contributes and gains. The bee doesn't serve the flower out of kindness, nor does the flower gift nectar without reason. They simply fit together perfectly. In a way, mutualism mirrors something deeply human. It reflects our own need for cooperation, our instinct to share, to connect, to find meaning in togetherness. When you look up at a tree heavy with fruit, when you watch birds building nests from its branches, when you see insects pollinating its blossoms, you are witnessing an entire community built on the quiet principle of mutual gain. Even the earth itself seems to follow this rhythm. The oceans feed the clouds bring rain to the land. The rivers return to the sea. Each part giving, each part receiving. That is mutualism on a planetary scale. Not all mutualistic relationships are visible to the eye. Some happen so quietly that we only discover them with microscopes and patience. Let's travel down to the roots of plants. They're in the darkness of the soil. Tiny fungal threads wrap themselves around the plant's roots. These threads, called mycorrhizae, reach deep into the earth, drawing in water and minerals that the plant could never reach alone. In return, the plant shares a portion of its sugar, the food it makes from sunlight. This underground partnership has existed for over 400 million years. It was this relationship that allowed plants to first conquer land, turning barren rock into living green. If you could listen to the soil, you might hear the faint hum of exchange and cooperation. Another quiet partnership lives in the bellies of termites. These tiny insects eat with something their bodies can't digest by themselves. Inside them live specialized microbes that break down cellulose into simple nutrients. The termites feed the microbes, and the microbes feed the termites. Without this partnership, termites couldn't survive. And without termites, forests would drown in fallen wood. Decay would halt, and renewal would stop. Every forest owes part of its balance to that simple exchange. Mutualism even reaches into the air. Have you ever seen an oxpecker bird sitting on a zebra's back? The bird eats ticks and insects that cling to the zebra's skin. The zebra stays healthy, and the bird receives an endless meal. Sometimes the relationships become so specific that each partner evolves with the other. There are orchids shaped perfectly to fit one single species of moth. If that moth disappears, the orchid cannot reproduce. Their lives are woven together like a promise written in the fabric of evolution. What's astonishing is how fragile, and yet how enduring, these partnerships are. Remove one piece and the other falters. Protect both, and the cycle continues for ages. Even coral reefs, those underwater cities of life, are held together by mutualism. Tiny algae live inside coral tissues, providing food through photosynthesis, while the coral offers shelter and minerals. Without this bond, the reef fades into lifelessness. We'll explore this beautiful relationship later, but it's worth remembering here that mutualism builds worlds at every scale, from microscopic to planetary. Mutualism reminds us that success in nature is rarely achieved alone. The grandest ecosystems are not competitions, but collaborations. When we study mutualism, we begin to see its quiet wisdom reflected in our own lives. It teaches us that growth happens best when we help one another. That true strength comes not from independence alone, but from the courage to connect. In nature, no species exists in perfect isolation. Even predators rely on prey populations to stay healthy. Even trees need the fungi below them. Even the smallest insect plays a part in a much greater balance. There's something deeply comforting in that truth. It means we belong. We are never entirely alone, because everything we do ripples outward, touching other lives. Think of the human heart. It beats not only for the body, but for every living cell within it. Every pulse, every breath supports a colony of life. Millions of microscopic companions that depend on us and whom we depend upon in return. We are ecosystems, walking, thinking, breathing, and when we cooperate with each other and with the planet, we are living the principle of mutualism. When scientists talk about sustainability, they are, in a way, talking about rediscovering mutualism, giving back to nature in return for what we take, allowing the earth to heal so we can continue to thrive together. This philosophy exists even in human culture. Communities that share resources, that care for one another, survive longer and live better. It's the same quiet rule that guides a bee and the flower. In ecosystems where mutualism is strong, balance follows. Species stabilize. Energy flows naturally. Waste from one life becomes nourishment for another. It's a kind of endless recycling powered by generosity. If we listen, we can hear the same rhythm echoing in our daily lives. When we teach, when we help, when we share, we create small pockets of mutualism in the human world. And perhaps that is why this form of symbiosis feels so peaceful to study at night. It reminds us that kindness is not separate from survival. That cooperation is not just moral, it's natural. When you walk outside tomorrow, look at the flowers, the birds, the trees. Each one exists because of countless unseen partnerships. Each one is alive because of another, Mutualism is nature's love story, a story without words, without promises, only actions repeated across generations. It's how the planet breathes, how ecosystems stay whole, how life continues. So when you think of the bee and the flower, the clownfish and its anemone, the tree and its fungi, remember that they are not simply surviving. They are thriving together, and perhaps that is the most beautiful kind of existence there is. In the quiet theater of nature, not every partnership is perfectly balanced. Sometimes one life gains a gentle advantage, while the other continues unchanged, unbothered, simply existing. This is commensalism, a form of symbiosis where one benefits, and the other is neither helped nor harmed. The word comes from Latin com, meaning together, and mensa, meaning table. So, commensalism literally means sharing the same table. It is the art of quietly taking part in another's world without disturbing it. Imagine a large buffalo moving slowly across the grasslands of Africa. As it walks, insects rise from the grass in swarms, and following close behind are small birds, darting and fluttering in its shadow. These birds, called cattle egrets, follow the buffalo to feed on the insects it stirs up. They don't hurt the buffalo. They don't help it either. They simply share its presence, turning its movement into their meal. That's commensalism. Quiet, simple, yet beautifully efficient. In the vast web of life, this kind of relationship is everywhere. It's the barnacles clinging to a whale's skin, riding across oceans on a living vessel. It's the remora fish attaching itself to a shark's belly, feeding on scraps left behind from the shark's hunt. The shark doesn't notice. The whale doesn't care. But for the smaller creatures, these partnerships mean survival. Commensalism is subtle and often silent. There are no exchanges of gifts, no balance sheets of energy or benefit. It's simply one species finding a way to live alongside another without taking too much. In some ways, it is the gentlest form of dependence, a quiet coexistence, a whisper connection. You might even say commensalism is the poetry of proximity, the simple truth that sometimes just being near another life is enough to survive. Even on land, tiny spiders build webs across the horns of gazelles, using the animal's movement to catch insects in flight. The gazelle feels nothing, and the spider thrives. Nature, it seems, always finds space for harmony, even in one-sided stories. And as we look deeper into this idea, we begin to see that commensalism isn't merely about advantage. It's also about restraint, about knowing how to share without disturbing the balance. It's a lesson that life doesn't always take. Sometimes it simply follows, quietly, respectfully. To understand commensalism more deeply, let's wander through the many ways it appears across the living world. High in the tropical canopy, orchids cling to the branches of ancient trees. They grow not in soil, but in the open air, rooted to the bark, far above the forest floor. They're called epiphytes, plants that live upon other plants. The host tree gives them a place to anchor, a home closer to sunlight, and a view of the rain-laden clouds. But the orchid takes nothing more. It doesn't steal nutrients or water from the tree. It simply uses its height. The tree remains healthy, while the orchid flourishes in borrowed space. This is one of the most elegant examples of commensalism in the plant world. Now, drift down from the treetops into the grasslands again. They're the same egrets we saw before, follow not only buffalo, but also tractors in modern fields. The rhythm of life remains the same, only the companion changes. Nature adapts, and commensalism continues. In the sea, remora fish use special suction discs on their heads to attach to whales, sharks, or even turtles. They travel vast distances, feeding on the leftovers of their hosts' meals. Their hosts are neither aware nor inconvenienced, but the remora finds food, shelter, and transport. It's a quiet, floating alliance. And beneath the waves, there are crabs that carry sea anemones on their shells. The anemones gain mobility, a ride to new feeding grounds. And in return, they sometimes protect the crab from predators. This one drifts close to mutualism. But in many cases, the crab is simply using the anemone sting as camouflage. The anemone neither gains nor loses. Nature doesn't draw strict lines. It's all a spectrum of give and take. Sometimes even humans host commensal guests, birds that nest in our roofs, mice that live in our fields. They benefit from our warmth, our leftovers, our shelter. And while we may not always enjoy their company, most cause no harm. They've simply learned to live beside us. Even within our bodies, countless microbes exist in this quiet relationship. They do not harm us, nor do they serve us. They simply exist, sharing space, living quietly in the human ecosystem. This form of coexistence is everywhere. It's how life fills every available niche. Every pocket of air, soil, and sea becomes a home for someone. And in its own gentle way, commensalism shows us nature's kindness. Not every survival is a struggle. Sometimes it's simply the art being nearby. Commensalism may seem simple, but hidden within it is a beautiful philosophy, a quiet wisdom about how to live side by side. It reminds us that not all relationships need to be equal or even reciprocated. Sometimes it's enough to simply coexist peacefully in human life. 2, there are echoes of commensalism, the way wild birds find shelter in city parks, the way flowers grow along fences built by human hands, the way trees shade our homes. Without expecting anything in return, we live within layers of gentle coexistence. Some we notice and others we never see. Nature teaches us here that the world isn't divided into winners and losers. Often, it's simply a mosaic of beings, each finding its place in the grand design. Even in competition, there are moments of stillness where life simply overlaps, without tension or harm. Commensalism is the balance between need and respect. The remora does not take too much. The orchid does not suffocate its host. The bird does not wound the buffalo. Each one understands instinctively the limits of living alongside another. It's a soft reminder for us as well. In our crowded modern world, we too must learn the art of sharing space, to take what we need without overstepping, to coexist with quiet grace. If we could see the world through the eyes of commensal creatures, we might realize how interconnected everything is, how the smallest act of existence can ripple through the fabric of life without ever causing harm. In the stillness of night, imagine all the beings that rest upon others, the moss upon the stone, the bird upon the branch, the remora beneath the shark, each life nestled against another in trust. There's a peace in that image, a serenity that mirrors how life can be soft and balanced. Commensalism whispers that not all partnerships need to change the world. Some simply share it. And in that sharing, the planet breathes a little easier in the long, slow symphony of life. Not all relationships are kind. Not all bonds are gentle. Some are built on taking, on surviving through another's loss. This is parasitism, a type of symbiosis where one organism benefits and the other suffers harm. It may sound cruel, but parasitism is as natural as the sunrise. It is one of the oldest strategies of life, a method written deep in the code of survival since the dawn of evolution. The word itself comes from the Greek parasitos, meaning one who eats at another's table, a guest who takes but does not give. In nature, parasites are everywhere, inside the bodies of animals, beneath the bark of trees, within the roots of plants, and even within the minds of other creatures. A parasite lives in or on another organism, the host, drawing nourishment, warmth, protection, and sometimes even control. The host often doesn't know it's being used until the effects become visible: weakness, disease, decay. But the parasite continues quietly, often small, unseen, unnoticed. It's the tapeworm coiled within the intestine of a mammal, feeding off what the host consumes. It's the mistletoe clinging to a tree branch, drinking from its sap. It's the tick, the leech, the flea, and the mosquito, each one an artist of survival. Parasitism, though it may sound dark, is one of nature's most efficient systems. It requires no violence, only persistence, no fight, only endurance. Over millions of years, parasites have evolved astonishing ways to blend in, to deceive, to manipulate their host behavior and biology. Some alter hormones. Others change the way a creature moves or thinks. There are fungi that can turn insects into mindless climbers, driving them upward before bursting from their bodies to spread spores on the wind. It's a chilling image, and yet profoundly fascinating, because even here, in this eerie relationship, nature is not cruel for cruelty's sake. It is simply efficient, balanced, in its own strange way. Every parasite needs its host alive, at least for a while, and that fragile dependence creates a strange kind of harmony, one life feeding from another without ending it too soon. Parasitism is not evil. It is survival in its most intimate form. Now let's wander deeper into this hidden world where some of life's smallest creatures hold astonishing power over the largest. Consider the liver fluke, a tiny flatworm that manipulates the minds of ants. When an ant becomes infected, the parasite guides it to climb a blade of grass at night and clamp down tightly with its jaws. There, the ant remains motionless until dawn, when it risks being eaten by a grazing animal. Inside that animal's liver, the fluke completes its life cycle, one parasite controlling multiple hosts across species to survive. Then there's the cuckoo bird. Unlike most parasites, it doesn't live inside another creature, but it uses another's labor. A female cuckoo lays her egg in the nest of another bird. When it hatches, the cuckoo chick pushes the other eggs out, claiming the nest, the food, and the care of a parent that isn't its own. It is a parasite of trust, a deception of nurture. The host parents feed and protect it, believing it's their own offspring, even as the chick grows larger than them. This behavior shows that parasitism isn't limited to infection or disease. It can take place through behavior, through psychology, through instinct. In the ocean, There's a parasite that replaces a fish's tongue. It attaches itself where the tongue once was and becomes part of the fish's mouth. The fish lives on and uses the parasite as if it were its own tongue. A grotesque kind of partnership, and yet functional. Nature wastes nothing. Even in plants, parasitism thrives. Dodder vines, for example, wind themselves around other plants, piercing their stems with tiny structures that draw out sap. They don't photosynthesize much themselves. They live on the energy of their hosts. And in human life, too, parasites are ever-present. Microscopic worms, protozoa, fleas, and ticks. Some cause illness. Others pass unnoticed. Our immune systems are ancient battlefields, forged in constant war against parasitic invaders. But through this endless struggle, life has learned to adapt. Hosts evolved defenses. Parasites evolve counter-defenses. A perfect, ongoing cycle of adaptation. It's an evolutionary arms race. Slow, silent, and never-ending. And yet, it's this very tension that drives diversity on Earth. Without parasites, life might stagnate. Every push and pull creates new forms, new strategies, new resilience. Even the dark side of coexistence has its place in the grand design. At first glance, parasitism seems cruel. One gains, one suffers. It feels unfair, unnatural, wrong. But in truth, it is part of nature's endless search for balance. Parasites teach us something profound, that even within struggle, there is connection, that no life exists completely on its own. Every parasite depends on its host, and every host shapes its parasite. They evolve together in a dance of survival. One step forward for the host, one counter step for the parasite, across generations. This cycle shapes evolution itself. It reminds us that even hardship serves a purpose, that suffering, too, can spark adaptation, growth, and strength. And perhaps, if we look closer, parasitism isn't just a story of taking. It's a mirror of dependence, a reflection of how deeply life is intertwined, because in the end, even the smallest parasite connects the web of life in invisible ways. It regulates populations. It prevents species from overrunning their habitats. It ensures diversity and equilibrium. So while we may recoil at its methods, nature accepts parasitism as one of its oldest truths. There could be no light without shadow, no harmony without tension, and no life without dependence. In the quiet spaces between cells and creatures, life is always negotiating, balancing, sharing energy through love or through loss. And perhaps this is what makes our planet so remarkable, that even in the act of taking, life creates more life. So as you breathe deeply and let your mind settle into stillness, remember this quiet truth. Every life form, every heartbeat is connected, whether by kindness, by need, or by survival. And in that vast, intricate web, even the parasite has its sacred place. Far below the ocean's glittering surface lies a kingdom unlike any other. A world that looks, from above, like a solid garden of stone, but is in truth very much alive. The coral reef, a living tapestry woven by countless tiny beings, each one fragile, each one luminous, each one dependent on another. Corals are not plants, though they appear rooted. They are tiny animals called polyps, each one no larger than a pinhead, yet together they build vast underwater cities. Layer by layer, Their calcium carbonate skeletons rise from the seabed, creating the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth. But coral cannot do this alone. Its secret strength, its very life, depends on another form of life, an unseen partner, a microscopic friend, known as zooxanthellae, a type of algae. This relationship between coral and algae is one of nature's most delicate and astonishing partnerships. The coral provides shelter and safety, a tiny home within its transparent tissue, and in return, the algae perform photosynthesis, using sunlight to produce oxygen and sugar, which the coral uses as food. It's a perfect circle of giving. Each depends on the other entirely. The coral offers protection, the algae offer nourishment, and together they create the glowing brilliance of coral reefs, those vibrant blues, pinks, purples, and golds that shimmer beneath the water surface. These colors are not merely decoration. They are the hues of life itself, a sign of harmony, of a partnership working perfectly. When you see a coral reef, you're not seeing one creature. You're seeing thousands living as one. A single organism made of millions of relationships. Every ray of sunlight that filters through the ocean's waves feeds the symbiosis. It's as though the sea itself is breathing life into their connection. And in this quiet, sunlit world, the coral and the algae whisper to each other in the language of chemistry, exchanging gases, sugars, nutrients. A slow, steady dialogue that sustains entire ecosystems. Fish find food here. Crabs find shelter. Turtles pass through, resting on coral shells. And all of it begins with this invisible bond between a tiny animal and a tiny plant-like cell. In the stillness of the deep, the coral and algae remind us that the most powerful partnerships are often the smallest. As the sun rises each morning, light filters through the ocean, painting everything with soft, dappled gold. This light is the heartbeat of the coral's world. For the algae within the coral's tissues, sunlight is everything. Through photosynthesis, they transform light into energy, producing sugars that feed the coral polyps. In return, the coral provides carbon dioxide and nutrients that the algae need to survive. It's an endless silent exchange, a biological dance of light and life. Imagine the algae as tiny solar panels within the coral's body, capturing sunlight, converting it into the nourishment that keeps both alive. It's this constant sharing that makes coral reefs the bustling metropolises of the sea. Every reef is alive with movement. Fish weave through branching corals like threads of light. Sea anemones wave gently in the current. Tiny shrimp clean, while eels hide in shadowy crevices. All of them owe their home, their protection, their survival to this fragile bond. But the relationship is not without risk. It's balanced on the edge of temperature and light. When the ocean grows too warm, or the light becomes too harsh, the algae inside the coral can become stressed. In that stress, they produce toxins, and the coral, trying to protect itself, expels them. Without the algae, the coral loses its color, turning pale, white, ghostly. This is what scientists call coral bleaching. It's not death, but it's a warning, a sign that the partnership is breaking. If conditions return to normal, the coral may welcome the algae back. The colors return. The harmony resumes. But if the heat or pollution persists, the coral may not survive. And with it, an entire ecosystem begins to unravel. This delicate balance shows how finely tuned nature's partnerships truly are. A change of just 1 or 2 degrees in ocean temperature can alter millions of lives. A small disruption in chemistry can silence entire reefs. Yet even in this fragility, there is beauty, because the coral and algae teach us what trust in nature looks like. They surrender to each other completely. Their existence is intertwined, a life of shared purpose, built on mutual faith in the rhythm of light. When you imagine the coral's soft surface glowing beneath the sea, know that every color, every shimmer, is the living heartbeat of partnership itself. In the grand story of the earth, few relationships capture the essence of connection as perfectly as the coral and the algae. Their bond is ancient, stretching back hundreds of millions of years. They have weathered ice ages, storms, and mass extinctions, and still they continue to build, quietly, faithfully. Each tiny coral polyp lays down its limestone skeleton, building upon the remains of generations before it. In this way, coral reefs grow upward, reaching slowly toward the light. It is a story of patience, of cooperation over time. The Great Barrier Reef, the largest structure ever built by living organisms, is not the work of years, or even centuries. It is the work of love, between coral and algae, woven together over millions of years. And so, these reefs become more than just habitats. They are living records of unity. They show us that growth is never achieved alone. Beneath the waves, where silence reigns, and light bends and softens, the coral and algae continue their quiet work. They remind us that even the smallest acts of cooperation can build wonders beyond imagination, that strength can arise, not from isolation, but from interdependence. Perhaps this is why the reef feels so peaceful to look at, because it mirrors something we understand deep within ourselves: the longing to belong, to share energy, to build beauty with another being. And as we gaze at those glowing gardens under the sea, we are reminded that balance is sacred, that harmony is fragile, and that the world itself is one great symphony of partnerships, each note depending on another. So, tonight, as you imagine the quiet rhythm of waves rolling over the reef and the coral shimmering softly beneath, remember this: even in the vastness of the ocean, no life stands alone. Every light in the deep is a conversation, every color a promise, and every coral a story of trust. Far below the shimmering surface, in the quiet blue hush of the sea, an extraordinary partnership unfolds, one built not on power, but on trust. Imagine a massive fish, a grouper, a moray eel, or even a reef shark, gliding slowly through warm tropical waters. It pauses near a coral outcrop, its mouth slightly open, its body still. Then, from within the coral crevice, a tiny fish emerges, brightly colored, delicate, no longer than your finger. This is the cleaner wrasse, one of the ocean's most remarkable healers. And in this moment, something magical happens. The giant opens its mouth wide, revealing sharp teeth, rows upon rows. And yet, the little wrasse swims right in. There is no fear, no chase, no danger. Instead, there's peace. The wrasse moves gently, picking tiny parasites and dead skin from the giant's mouth, gills, and scales. For the giant, it's a moment of relief, the removal of irritation, the soothing of wounds. For the wrasse, it's a meal and protection, Both creatures benefit. Neither harms the other. This is mutualism at its finest, a quiet exchange, rooted in trust. The giant must restrain itself, suppressing every predatory instinct as the tiny fish swims fearlessly into its mouth. And the cleaner, in turn, must be careful, gentle, never biting too hard or hurting its client. Through countless generations, both have learned this delicate dance, a ritual of cooperation, repeated endlessly beneath the waves. Sometimes, larger fish even line up patiently at a cleaning station, a spot on the reef where cleaner fish gather, offering their services to whoever comes by. It's like an underwater spa, a sanctuary of calm in a world full of survival. Here, in the language of movement and color, trust is everything, and it is honored. As sunlight ripples across the seafloor, the reef begins its daily rhythm. Fish of all kinds swim by, parrotfish, tangs, groupers, even rays, each waiting their turn. At the heart of this rhythm, the cleaner wrasse moves gracefully, darting from one client to the next, communicating through gentle touches and gestures. When a fish wishes to be cleaned, it changes posture, hovering still, fins spread, as if saying, "I trust you." And when the cleaner accepts, it begins with a soft touch of its fins, a reassuring signal. You are safe. The wrasse removes parasites, fungus, and dead skin. In doing so, it keeps its clients healthy and itself nourished. But this relationship goes beyond biology. It reveals something deeper, that even in the wild, where competition reigns, there is space for compassion. Scientists studying this behavior have discovered that cleaner wrasses possess remarkable intelligence. They can recognize individual clients, remember past interactions, and even adjust their service accordingly. If a client fish flinches or shows discomfort, the wrasse immediately changes its technique, becoming gentler, more careful. Some researchers describe this as empathy-like behavior. Others see it as pure adaptation. But whatever the cause, the result is harmony. The cleaner wrasse has even developed its own body language to advertise its services by performing a distinct dance, a rhythmic flutter of its fins. It signals that it is a trustworthy partner. This movement attracts clients from across the reef, creating a network of mutual benefit. It's a living system of cooperation, held together not by force, but by understanding. And while the reef itself may appear chaotic, a swirl of color and motion, beneath it all lies a pattern of peace, a cycle of care, a quiet law of kindness, written into the fabric of life. Every cleaner wrasse is both a caretaker and a diplomat, balancing the needs of many species, without conflict. And when you pause to imagine this, tiny fish tending to the mighty, you might sense something familiar, a reflection of the way we, too, find balance through service, trust, and care. The ocean is vast, and yet it thrives because of tiny acts like these, because of unseen relationships that keep the great machine of life turning quietly. The bond between cleaner fish and their clients is one of the purest examples of symbiosis. Each gains something essential, one food and safety, the other health and relief. It's a model of peaceful coexistence, a reminder that even the smallest creature can play a vital role in the well-being of the great. But this partnership also holds lessons for us about trust, about restraint, about balance. The giant, though powerful, must allow itself to be vulnerable. it must open itself up, lower its guard, and trust the tiny cleaner to do its work. And the cleaner, though small, must act with integrity. It must keep its promise to help, not to harm. This exchange mirrors so much of what it means to live in harmony, to depend on others, and to be dependable in return. In every moment of mutual trust, there is beauty, because trust is what holds all of nature together. The ocean shows us that even opposites can form peace. The predator and the prey, the large and the small, the powerful and the delicate, they coexist not through dominance, but through understanding. And perhaps that's the quiet lesson hidden within the reefs, that survival is not always a struggle. Sometimes it's a partnership. Sometimes it's a shared breath. So, as the current moves softly across the reef, and the giant swims away, renewed, refreshed, and the little cleaner returns to its coral home, the ocean sighs in harmony, because balance has been restored. And in that soft rhythm, the silent exchange between giver and receiver, we find the ocean's most tender truth, that life thrives through care, that power is gentler when shared, and that trust is the heartbeat of existence. When you walk through a forest, you see trunks, branches, leaves fluttering in the breeze. You hear the rustle of birds, the whisper of wind, but what you don't see is the vast living network below. Beneath the soil, hidden from the sunlight, lies one of nature's greatest partnerships, the silent collaboration between trees and fungi. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network, a word that sounds almost magical, and in truth, it is. Mycorrhiza comes from Greek mykes, meaning fungus, and rhiza, meaning root. Together, they describe a union as old as the forests themselves. The fungi grow tiny, thread-like filaments called hyphae that stretch through the soil, wrapping around or even entering tree roots. These filaments are so fine, so delicate, that a teaspoon of soil can hold several kilometers of them. Through this network, fungi help trees absorb water and nutrients, especially phosphorus and nitrogen, which trees struggle to collect on their own. In return, the trees provide sugars and carbon compounds, produced through photosynthesis. It's a quiet, endless exchange, a language of giving and receiving, written in molecules. But what makes this partnership truly extraordinary is how it connects entire forests. A single fungus can link many trees together, even trees of different species. Through this underground network, nutrients and chemical messages flow from one root to another, as if the forest itself is thinking, sharing, and caring. Older, taller trees, the so-called mother trees, often send carbon to younger saplings nearby, helping them grow in the shade. When one tree is under attack by insects, it releases chemical signals through the network, warning others to strengthen their defenses. The forest, it seems, is alive with communication. It isn't a collection of isolated beings, but one vast, interconnected organism, a web of life woven in the dark, beneath our feet, deep underground, where light never reaches. Fungi move silently through the soil, threading their filaments like silver wires. And along these threads, information travels. If you could see it, you might imagine glowing pulses, flowing from root to root, tree to tree. Scientists sometimes call this the wide web, It's not made of circuits or electricity, but it serves a similar purpose: connection. Through this living web, trees share not just resources, but wisdom. When a tree is struggling, perhaps shaded from the sun, perhaps weakened by disease, neighboring trees may send extra carbon through the fungi to help it survive. When drought strikes, some species share water. When danger appears, they send alerts. This isn't magic, it's biology, but it feels like something more. Each tree, each fungus, acts in a way that benefits the whole. There is no central leader, no single command, only countless gentle exchanges that keep the forest in harmony. The fungi, in turn, receive energy from the trees, energy born of sunlight, shared down into the darkness. It is as though the trees gather the light and feed it into the soil so that life below can thrive. In autumn, as leaves fall and decay, fungi break them down, releasing nutrients back into the earth. Those same nutrients are then carried to living roots, starting the cycle again. Light becomes leaf, leaf becomes soil, soil becomes root, root becomes light once more. And through it all, the fungi serve as messengers, mediators, and caretakers. This, too, is symbiosis, the quiet art of sharing life. It reminds us that cooperation is not a human invention. It is a law of nature, a rhythm as old as the rain. When we look at the forest today, we might see tall trees, standing proudly, each one apart. But beneath the surface, they are never alone. They are families, communities, networks of trust and exchange. The trees and fungi together form one of Earth's most intricate systems of cooperation. And this partnership teaches us something profound, that even in stillness, there is connection. Even in silence, there is communication. And even in decay, there is renewal. When a tree falls, its trunk becomes nourishment. Fungi bloom across its bark, breaking it down, returning its essence to the soil. Through that soil, new life rises, fed by the remains of the old. In this way, the forest breathes in long, slow cycles: birth, growth, death, rebirth, all woven together by the invisible threads of fungi. We often think of intelligence as something that lives only in brains, in animals, in us. But perhaps there is another kind, the quiet intelligence of cooperation. The forest doesn't think with neurons, but with roots. It feels through its connections. It remembers through its soil. Every mushroom you see, every small cluster after rain, is just a fruit of a much larger being. Beneath it lies miles of living thread, a body hidden from view, working endlessly to sustain others. So when you next walk through a forest, listen closely. The rustling leaves, the hum of insects, the scent of earth, they are all part of a single breath. And beneath it all, a conversation continues, one that has lasted millions of years, spoken not in words, but in the language of life itself. The trees and fungi whisper to one another, and through that whisper, the world remains whole. Perhaps that's a lesson of the mycorrhizal web, that life is strongest when it is shared. Inside every one of us, there is an entire universe, invisible, delicate, and endlessly alive. It's called the microbiome, a vast collection of tiny living beings, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microscopic organisms. They live on our skin, in our mouths, and most of all, in our gut. For every human cell in your body, there may be at least one microbial cell. In numbers alone, we are just as much them as we are us. These microbes are ancient. They've been with life since the very beginning. When the first cells appeared in the oceans, billions of years ago, microbes were already there, the architects of metabolism, the shapers of chemistry, the quiet inventors of life's tools. And now, after all that time, they live within you. When you breathe, some are at work in your lungs, balancing your immune responses. When you eat, others in your intestines help break down food, extracting nutrients. You could never digest alone. There are bacteria that produce vitamins, others that protect you from infection, and still more that calm the inflammation your body sometimes creates. Together, they form a symbiotic system, a living partnership between human and microbe, host and guest, self and other. It's easy to think of bacteria as invaders because we often meet them through illness, but the truth is far more balanced and far more beautiful. For every harmful species, there are thousands that help you, nourish you, and guard you, a microscopic society devoted to keeping you alive. If you could zoom in far enough, you'd see billions of them moving gracefully through your intestines, like life in miniature, a soft current of unseen energy flowing through your body, keeping everything in tune. And just as trees and fungi share nutrients underground, so too do humans and microbes share a delicate rhythm of survival. We feed them with fibers, starches, and nutrients, and in return, they feed us back with compounds that heal and protect. This is symbiosis at the most intimate level, not outside in nature, but inside the very core of our being. If you've ever had a gut feeling, you've felt the whisper of this deep connection. Our digestive system is lined with millions of nerve cells, so many, in fact, that scientists call it the second brain. But here's the astonishing part. Our gut microbes can talk to the second brain through chemical signals. They influence mood, emotion, and even thought. They produce neurotransmitters, the same kind that our own neurons use. Serotonin, dopamine, GABA, molecules of calm and joy, of sleep and contentment. Some microbes, nestled deep in the folds of our intestines, create substances that help regulate stress. Others shape our appetite, our cravings, and the rhythms of our energy. In a way, our emotions are not ours alone. They are the collective song of human and microbe together. This realization is soft, but profound. It means we are ecosystems, not individuals. Every mood, every moment of wellness or imbalance is a chorus of life, a harmony between millions of tiny voices. When we care for our bodies, when we eat fresh foods, sleep deeply, breathe slowly, we are not just helping ourselves. We are caring for them, too, and they respond in quiet gratitude by keeping us whole. Scientists are still uncovering the mysteries of this hidden communication. They call it the gut-brain axis. But beyond the chemistry and biology, there's a sense of poetry in it, a kind of inner conversation that never truly stops. It's as though in every heartbeat, every thought, every sigh of contentment, Our microbes are listening and answering back in their microscopic way. So when you feel calm or joyful or deeply at peace, perhaps that's not just you. Perhaps it's all of you, the great community within in perfect, sleepy harmony. Long before humans ever walked the earth, microbes were here, pioneers of the planet, breathing life into stone and water. They shaped the atmosphere, filled the oceans with oxygen, and laid the foundation for every complex organism to come. When multicellular life evolved, microbes were there again, forming partnerships inside cells, helping energy flow more efficiently. Mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses inside your cells, were once free-living bacteria. They entered ancient cells and stayed, becoming partners so intertwined that neither could exist without the other. Even now, that ancient alliance continues. Every heartbeat, every breath, every spark of energy in your muscles comes from this bond, a symbiosis written into your DNA. So when we speak of microbes, we're not talking about outsiders. We're talking about ancestors, allies, and lifelong companions. They live on your skin, guarding you from harm. They inhabit your gut, helping you draw nourishment from a world. They even drift in the air you breathe, tiny, unseen travelers, dancing through sunbeams. We often imagine ourselves as separate, humans apart from nature. But the truth is gentler. Nature is within us, woven into every cell. The story of symbiosis is the story of life's generosity, how species learn to live together, to exchange, to trust. Even in the smallest spaces, cooperation thrives. Even in the unseen, there is beauty. So, as you drift toward sleep, imagine the world inside you, the galaxies of microbes, moving softly through your body, working in harmony, keeping you alive, keeping you calm. You are not alone, and you never have been. You are a collection of lives, a partnership of countless beings, each one playing its quiet part in the great, ongoing song of existence. And perhaps in the stillness of night, if you listen closely enough, you might almost hear them, a whisper of life, in perfect, endless symbiosis. If you stand in a forest or by the edge of the sea and simply listen, you'll notice something almost musical. The world hums, not just with sound, but with coordination, with rhythm, with balance. Each species, each organism plays a role, not in isolation, but in partnership. This is the essence of symbiosis on a planetary scale. It's the quiet truth that no life exists alone. The bee depends on the flower depends on the bee. Fish clean other fish. Trees feed fungi. And the air we breathe is shaped by the smallest of organisms. Plankton drifting in sunlight, turning carbon into oxygen. In every ecosystem, from the desert, dunes to the coral reefs, symbiosis acts as nature's law of balance. Each partnership adds stability, like instruments tuning together in a great orchestra. And when they're in harmony, the melody of life continues, softly, steadily, endlessly. But if one instrument falters, the balance shifts. Remove the pollinators, and flowers fade, lose the coral's algae, and reefs turn ghostly white, disrupt the microbes in the soil, and trees lose their strength. Each connection is fragile, yet incredibly resilient. When protected, it's a living reminder that cooperation is not weakness. It's the foundation of survival. The planet's greatest strength is not competition, but balance through collaboration. And this harmony, though ancient, is renewed every moment, in the sigh of wind, in the drift of pollen, in the gentle pulse of the sea. Even the calmest symphony can sometimes fall out of tune. Nature's partnerships, as strong as they seem, can be shaken, often by us. When humans clear vast forests, pollute rivers, or warm the oceans, we interrupt delicate relationships that took millions of years to form. Corals lose their algae, a heartbreak called bleaching. Bees vanish from meadows, breaking the chain of pollination. Soil fungi die off, leaving roots hungry and unprotected. The result ripples outward like a single discordant note, echoing through an orchestra. But here's something beautiful. Nature remembers. It strives to heal. Given time and care, the partnerships can return. When a damaged forest begins to regrow, the fungi come back first, weaving life beneath the ground. When coral reefs are protected, the algae return, and color floods back into the sea. Even the tiniest microbes work endlessly to restore balance, breaking down toxins, purifying water, rebuilding the soil. It's as if the earth itself has a memory for harmony. We, too, are part of that memory. Our actions can weaken balance or strengthen it. Every tree planted, every ocean protected, every life respected adds another note to the great healing song of the planet. And when balance is restored, symbiosis blossoms again, quietly, patiently, beautifully. When we understand symbiosis deeply, it changes how we see everything. It reminds us that strength isn't about standing alone, but standing together. Every partnership in nature teaches this truth. The lichen, a fungus and an alga living as one, thrives where neither could survive alone. The clownfish and the sea anemone share protection and trust. Even predators and prey maintain balance, for without one, the other cannot evolve. Life is a dance, not a battle. And in that dance, each step, even the smallest, keeps the rhythm of existence flowing. Humans, too, are partners in this grand choreography. We depend on the oxygen of trees, the pollination of bees, the nutrients of soil, the microbes that heal our bodies. In return, we can offer awareness, care, and gratitude. We can live gently, respecting the balance that sustains us. We can plant, protect, and preserve, not from guilt, but from love, because love, in its purest form, is symbiosis, the act of giving and receiving life, without harm. When you think of balance now, imagine a thread stretching from the smallest bacterium to the tallest tree, to the stars that warm our world. It is one unbroken line of connection, woven through everything that breathes. And when we honor that thread, we become part of the harmony again. The earth sighs in relief, the ocean's calm, and somewhere deep inside, so do we, because balance in nature is balance in ourselves. And when both align, the world feels whole once more. If you look closely at nature, you might begin to notice something, a pattern repeating everywhere. It's in the way rivers branch, like veins in a leaf. It's in the spirals of galaxies, echoing the curl of a seashell. It's in the way a tree and a fungus share life, and the way light touches every living cell. It's connection. Everywhere you look, The universe is weaving itself together. Nothing stands alone. Not a grain of sand, not a droplet of rain, not even a single breath you take. Every molecule of oxygen in your lungs was once part of a star. Every atom in your body has lived through countless forms: stone, water, leaf, and flame. We are all recycled stardust, playing our part in the endless poem of existence. And symbiosis, this great partnership we've been exploring, is the language in which that poem is written. When coral and algae share energy, it's a verse. When trees feed fungi, another line. When microbes dance inside your cells, yet another stanza unfolds. Together, they form the quiet poetry of connection, life's way of saying, I am not one, I am many. It is a language without words, but one that every living thing can feel. And if you listen closely, in the hum of the world around you, you can almost hear it, a soft rhythm, a cosmic heartbeat, pulsing through everything that exists. Sometimes in the stillness of night, the world feels so wide, and we feel so small. But smallness, in truth, is not isolation. It is intimacy. Every creature, no matter how tiny, is a thread in the same tapestry. Each one contributes its color, its rhythm, its song. The lichen on a rock, the bacteria in the soil, the whale that sings in the ocean's deep, all are part of a single breathing creation. And you, as you lie here listening, are part of it, too. Your breath joins the rhythm of the trees. They exhale oxygen. You exhale carbon dioxide. An endless exchange, a conversation as old as the earth. Even your heartbeat echoes the pulse of the planet. When you are calm, your rhythm slows, matching the slow waves of the ocean, the quiet turning of the earth beneath you. We often search for meaning in the far reaches of the cosmos, but perhaps meaning is already here, woven into every act of connection, every kindness shared, every balance maintained, every partnership nurtured, is an echo of that universal harmony. You are not apart from it. You are within it. You are it. Symbiosis, balance, unity. These are not just scientific truths. They are emotional ones, spiritual ones. They are the heart of what it means to exist. So when you care for the world, you are caring for yourself. When you notice beauty, you are recognizing kinship. And when you breathe, you are singing the same quiet song that the forests and oceans have sung for eternity. And now, as our exploration draws to a close, let's return to where we began, to the idea of partnership and the calm realization that life's greatest strength comes from togetherness. Symbiosis is not just survival, it's generosity, it's patience, it's love, expressed through the chemistry of living things. Every relationship we've discovered tonight, from coral and algae to human and microbe, is a verse in the same ancient story, a story about balance, about trust, and about the beauty of giving and receiving. When we live with awareness of that truth, the world begins to feel softer, colors seem deeper, the air feels more alive, even silence feels full, as though something unseen is quietly holding you. And in that silence, you realize that you are home, home in the forest, home in the sea, home in the space between breaths, because connection is home. It's what the universe has been building for billions of years. And as you rest now, eyes heavy, mind quiet, let yourself feel that connection flow gently through you, You are part of the coral's shimmer, the forest breath, the heartbeat of microbes and stars alike. You are not alone. You never have been. The poetry of connection is written across your skin, sung softly in your blood, and whispered by the wind outside your window. So rest now with gratitude, with peace, with the calm certainty that you belong to everything, and everything belongs to you. Good night, dear listener. Sleep gently, dream sweetly, and may the quiet partnerships of life keep you safe, balanced, and endlessly connected. Good night and goodbye.